so it involves some thinking about, from us as architects, engineers, to say that's okay if we don't heat that one room and the windows open.
Thank you.
I have a question about passive solar design. It seems like the bigger the project gets, the more windows it has. And I understand the concern about daylighting, but you can save anywhere from 20 to 40% of the energy needed in a building with just passive solar design. Is this out of favor with green designers, or so that's my question.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think there's a couple of things that are go into this consideration. One is a lot of the buildings that we talked about, or certainly the buildings I talked about, have a lot of existing buildings there, which are what they are. Secondly, in science buildings particularly, frequently the envelope is not the critical thing. When there's so much ventilation, it's the opportunities for heat recovery that you can do with the ventilation that's happening for safety reasons. And I suppose finally, the more complex a building is, the less easy it is to adapt passive solar design techniques. That's not an excuse. I think it's just a fact. But I agree with you that it is something that tends to be overlooked in bigger, more complex buildings.
Other projects, we are actually putting what I will call lids or brims on the tops of the building a bit. What that at least does is allow some shadowing of the top floors of a building. And they really are effective. And when you run the energy modeling, because none of us have talked about it, but all of the buildings that are LEED certified have been gone through energy modeling many times over on a project, actually. So we have found at least putting what we call a brims or a lid or different big cornices, whatever you might want to call it, on or soffits on projects, at least helps shade those top levels. Obviously, we're not bringing them out far enough to shade the others, but it really does help, and the modeling is proving that as well. Also, remember the glazing. Fortunately, the research on glass performance has just really helped us out tremendously. That industry has done a lot to really bring a glass to the aid of architects and energy managers and people paying the heating and cooling bills. So that's been terrific. I will say that projects we didn't show to you, we actually, in different climates, where we have particularly west-facing, we have employed some automated shading devices, not passive, but recognizing that particularly the west sun is hard to handle. So looking at automated systems, because on these large, tall buildings, passive strategies just aren't getting you everywhere. So looking at other automated techniques that shades will lower as the sun comes around a facade and gets very strong and intense.
Exactly. I mean, each direction of the building needs to be treated separately.
Oh, and I think absolutely, and I think as you really look at the kinds of architecture that is represented here, every elevation is different and unique on every project because you're shadowed by other buildings, or for college campuses, you know, we're given our sites. You know, you can't pick your solar orientation, so to speak. You know, for Fort Hall, clearly we were given a site that's you know, required a north-south building, and there's no other way around it. And I think as you look at campus planning and you look at the campus master plans, and for architects, we just have to make the best of the sites we're given in terms of passive solar. Anybody else? No? Yes?
Going back to accommodating people who choose to live a car-free lifestyle, is there any room in your design process to incorporate elements such as bike shelters that protect your bike, which is your mode of transport, from the element, or bike storage facilities within the activities of your new buildings or remodeling your old buildings? Or somehow encourage your faculty and staff to role model the life and getting on the bus for their students to educate them?
Well, LEED is a big help here. In fact, I don't want to be LEED. I said is a big help here. actually I don't want to be cynical, but in the early days of LEED, it was almost a joke among architects that the easiest way to get LEED points was to put in a bike rack and a shower. And all of a sudden you had a couple of LEED points. And it was, compared with other things you had to do, it was a really easy thing to do. So I think LEED actually has helped everybody recognize the importance of providing for alternative means of transportation.
Another credit specifically references pedestrian distance of the site to the nearest public transportation, so say maybe a bus stop. So I think it's a half a mile or a quarter of a mile, I think. So if you just simply have to prove that distance, that travel distance, as you would walk it down the sidewalk around the corner to the left. There's the bus stop.
Our office at Amherst College, our building has, what, 20 people working in it? And on any given day, you'll find 6 bikes in the basement. And so we have people making decisions every day about how the campus will look, a significant number of which are riding to work. But what we've done is we've guerrilla commandeered indoor space for our bicycles. And so you know, and at Smith we were looking at some sheltered bike racks today. So the decision process there, but then again, like Tom says, money talks. You know, look at the cost of the space per square foot that we store our bikes in. You know, it's a finished space. It's a finished indoor space that has a value that we've now taken up with our bicycles, and yet we lack the ability to say a $30,000 architecturally nice rack with a roof and sides and everything. That's too much money. We can't spend that money, but we can take over the space.
Right,
so
right. So we can spend $12,000 a parking space.
Yes, or $30,000 for a parking garage. So it's not easy, but I like your comment of example. You know, showing people that it's possible. You know, taking that 5 college bus back and forth is a wonderful thing, and it works. You know, and also the different campuses have a very different culture on driving on campus. And one of the schools, people tend to drive on campus from meeting to meeting. But it's always fun to be the person on foot that beats them to the next meeting because they're looking for a parking space.
Anybody else? Thank you so much for coming.
All right. Do people want to delete stuff?
I don't know if you have your things still in, if you can just download them onto my computer or the video for like free for speakers.
Mine's sitting on there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.